Hi, everyone. Hi. Can I ask you all to please take a seat? Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Allison Gerber. I'm the editor of the Times Free Press. And I know that you all have very busy schedules, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your week to discuss this with us tonight. I also want to acknowledge and thank our elected officials who are Mayor Andy Burt from the city of Chattanooga, Mayor Jim Coppinger from Hamilton County. From the school board, we've got Carista Mosley-Jones, Steve Highlander, Rhonda Thurman, Tiffany Robinson, and Kathy Lennon. From the County Commission, Randy Fairbanks is here tonight. Tim Boyd is also here. And Mike Carter and Todd Gardenhire, Senator Todd Gardenhire and Representative Mike Carter are here from our legislative delegation. So thank you all for being here. If there are any other elected officials that I overlooked, my apologies. We all know that education is a key issue in our community. We all want our children to go to the best schools and have the best teachers. And in Hamilton County, over recent months, there's been a great deal of discussion about this. Over the past year, a coalition of business leaders, civic leaders, elected officials, nonprofit sector members, and others have worked on an initiative that identified improving education as a means of better preparing our students for the workforce as a major initiative in our community. The Chattanooga 2.0 report called this effort, quote, a moral and economic imperative. Here at the Times Free Press, our job is to get information to people. And so in that spirit, we thought we would convene a dialogue about education and teacher quality and all of these issues that right now, at this particular moment in time, are something that is especially important to our community. Also, as a newspaper, one of our goals, one of the things we hope to do is educate people about how to become sophisticated consumers of the news, how to be able to tell a fact that can be verified from an opinion or an assertion. This is a skill known as news literacy. And in that spirit, we have partnered with the American Society of News Editors, along with the newspapers in Nashville, Knoxville, Memphis, and Jackson to work on a series called the Tennessee Tough Issues Forum, discussions just like the one we're about to have tonight that center on education. So what we hope to do tonight is use the principles of news literacy to facilitate a discussion. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. I especially want to thank Sylvia Flowers because she drove over from Nashville and to be here with us tonight. She is the Executive Director of Teacher Talent for the Tennessee Department of Education. We also have Edna Varner from the Public Education Foundation, who is also a coach with Project Inspire, Zach Brown, an Assistant Superintendent at the Hamilton County Department of Education, and Brandon Hubbard Heights, who is a teacher at the Howard School. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm going to kick it over to my colleague Chris Vass, who's going to talk about the guidelines for tonight.
Okay, on your seat there are a list of guidelines for tonight's conversation. It's fairly extensive. Sometimes in conversations like this, you may hear things that you disagree with. Tonight we would ask everyone to listen with respect, to listen actively for understanding, and not to criticize the viewpoints of others. Equally important, we are going to try to keep this conversation jargon-free. We know that education policy can get very wonky with really long words and acronyms that a lot of people are not familiar with. So I would ask the panelists to not be offended, or any other of our speakers not to be offended if we stop and ask you to speak in plainer language for everybody to understand.
So on August 14th, the newspapers published a story about Tennessee's system for evaluating teachers. Candy Rainwater is our education reporter. She wrote the story, and she's going to briefly talk about it. But before that, I know you can see Kendi's got her laptop with her. She's not being disrespectful. She's live tweeting this event. She's a prolific live tweeter of education events, as I'm sure some of you probably know.
All right, so I want to also thank everybody for coming tonight, and especially the students that are here. We're really excited to have you guys be a part of this conversation. And like Allison said, I will be live tweeting some tonight and join in on it. I know some people have come to depend on it, and some of you teachers demand live tweeting. So we would love for you guys to join the conversation. And for everyone on Facebook Live also, it's a way that you can interact with us tonight. But as Allison was saying, the reporting of this story began with the understanding from national and state research showing that teachers are the most influential person in the in-school factor on a student's education. So some of you teachers here in this room, you guys get that. And so we understood that and wanted to do something that honestly another newspaper in Tennessee had never done before, which is really understand what the data in our area looked like. So by requesting those raw numbers, first on our teacher effectiveness, which teachers get ranked every year as highly effective, effective, or least effective. So requesting that data, I merged it with other demographic information, so race and poverty, things like that, so that we could put all the data together and see what trends were there. So we did find some pretty strong trends that students that are minority or are from poverty do frequently learn, or are more likely to learn from least effective teachers here in Hamilton County. But to us, that wasn't enough of the story. We wanted to understand kind of what else was there, and we had to understand that in comparison. So we asked for data to look at the other large school districts that looked like us to kind of understand in comparison what that means. And what we did find is that here in Hamilton County, about 30% of our teachers are ranked least effective, which is 3 times the state average and double the average of Nashville, Memphis, and Knoxville. And so that's where the reporting left us with that story.
I think it's important at this time to acknowledge that in Hamilton County there is some distrust of that evaluation system. There's some people who have questioned its legitimacy. That's not the case in other parts of the state. In Shelby County, for example, teacher bonuses are awarded in the evaluation system in the same data. We had an event in the newsroom about 2 weeks ago that the panelists participated in. Some of you all who are here tonight were there, as well as some other members of the community, to discuss this issue, teacher prep and quality, and also to talk about news literacy. And it was clear at the end of that that there's some very widespread views, a very wide variety of views on this topic. But we're not here tonight to debate that system. It's the system that the state of Tennessee has, and what we want to do is use it as a jumping off point for a discussion about teacher quality and teacher preparation and how we hold on to good teachers and inspire our best and brightest to become teachers, to pick that as a profession, because we all know how essential it is. So with that, I would like to ask Sylvia and Edna to please talk a little bit about what makes an effective teacher and how an effective teacher compares to one who, for example, might need some improvement, and also to talk a little bit about the impact that a teacher has on his or her students.
Good evening. My name is Sylvia Flowers. I work in the Teachers and Leaders Division in Nashville. Our team focuses on educator licensure and preparation, educator talent, educator effectiveness, and leader effectiveness. And I think over the last 5 years, we have really focused on using the data from our evaluation system to inform some of the work that we do. And because the system has multiple measures, both qualitative and quantitative measures, we've been able to help districts identify strategies, not only that focus on teachers, but also that look at other parts of what's happening in their systems. I think the formative part of our evaluation system allows for teachers and principals to see what's happening in the classroom and get in the classroom more, and then use that data to to facilitate conversations at the school level, the classroom level, and the district level. So what we see typically is a lot of peer collaboration. We see a lot of pairing of teachers so that teachers can learn from other teachers and identify what's working well in classrooms, and actually get to visit other teachers' classrooms. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Would
There's
you like to
probably
weigh in,
more.
Edna?
Okay, I'm glad to get this question because I am lucky enough to have had an opportunity to see effective teachers on 2 continents, to see them all across the United States when I was working with the Literacy Initiative. And I just left a room full of them at the Public Education Foundation, being celebrated for the work they do with the Teacher Fund. Anybody can read the website and read the journal and read journals and get the high level. They collaborate. They are lifelong learners and so forth. But I want to give a few examples to get to the nitty-gritty of it. How do you know a highly effective teacher when you see one? I was actually in the elevator with Carrie Randolph a few minutes ago, and I said, I'm going to be talking about what a highly effective teacher looked like, because at the prep, I knew that was going to come up. And I said, if you're in a classroom, how do you know? And she said, well, you look at the students. You see if they look engaged. You see if they look excited. And that's exactly what you do. You look at the students. When you're not in the classroom, what kinds of things do you listen for to know you're in the presence of a highly effective teacher? People are shaking their heads because sometimes you can get some scores that don't really reflect, and I'm not here to debate that, because I absolutely believe that if these are the scores that measure us, we ought to be getting those scores. And I think we started working on them long before the article came out. So we know that. I'm not going to say the system is wrong, we're all effective, because if the children aren't doing well, then we're not effective. I'm going to ask Jeffrey to remind me of something important I want to say at the end. So say, Edna, did you say it when I get there? But I will say this. We have kids in our school system who have been so beaten up by life. They deserve highly effective teachers. And there are people who dedicate themselves to working with the children in the highest needs schools. They go in every day determined not to give up on themselves, because giving up on themselves is giving up on children. You can be in the presence of a group of teachers, and if you hear something like this, oh, the children are misbehaving, they won't get their homework done, they are just not engaged. When you're in the room with that group, you know you're in the presence of ineffective teachers, because kids who are not engaged, kids who won't do their assignments, kids who don't love learning, that's what we do. That's what effective teachers are good at. Bring them on. That's why we became teachers, because we know how to turn that around. The room I just left was full of teachers who absolutely love learning. If a teacher isn't modeling that, how can she get kids to love learning? So there are plenty of indicators that need to be added to the chart. And we can tell you what those are. The thing I want to say is, thank you for the nod, I did get a chance to look at some of the other counties. And I asked the question, the African proverb question, how are the children doing? We will get our numbers up. We will get the numbers that demonstrate that we have highly effective teachers. But keep pushing back on us, because in those counties, lots of kids are still not showing any growth. Every one of them has schools in double digits where kids are failing up a storm. So we're going to get the numbers up. We're going to increase the numbers of highly effective teachers, but keep pushing back on us, because until the students are really learning, those numbers on highly effective teachers aren't high enough.
I'd like to turn it to Zach for a minute. Zach, you recently were principal at the Howard School. You've joined Kirk and Jill at the central office. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did as a principal to support teachers, especially teachers who might need improvement, and then also explore a little bit about what you're doing in your new role to help principals do that same work?
All right, good afternoon. Thank you. First, I want to start off by saying I've had the privilege for the last few months to visit many of our schools across this district, and we have great teachers in place. And so I want to make sure that everyone knows in this room that we have excellent teachers in all of our schools. Do we have work to do? Sure, we do have work to do, but I want you to know that I'm excited about the future of our county and our district. I want to say one of the things that I did as I was fortunate to be the principal at Howard was to hire this gentleman to the right. Mr. Hubbard Heights, for example, you know, my job as any leader in the principalship is to make sure that we find the best teachers possible. And ultimately, because at the end of the day, who's going to make the real difference? The teachers are going to make the difference. So ultimately, it's all about finding the right people. And I think that each and every day, all the principals in this county, we're always trying to find that great talent, right? Because our kids deserve it. So I was fortunate enough to, when we were going through the interview process, to come across Mr. Hubbard Heights, and he's kind of he's a gift, he's a tool, because ultimately he really wanted to work in the inner city, and so it was a great fit. We were talking about how do we know what's good teaching and effective teaching. Ultimately, I know that Mr. Hubbard Heights was great because I was in his classroom. I noticed what was going on. You know, our goal here for a district is to engage every child every day. When I walked in Mr. Hubbard Heights' room, I knew that he was effective because his students were engaged. His student was communicating. They was collaborating. They were creating. And at the end of the day, Mr. Hubbard Heights loved his kids. And so ultimately, I need to fill my building with many Hubbard Heights. And so as a district standpoint, when we started this over the summer, the first thing we needed to do was to listen. So ultimately, our team, we end up having focus groups, principal focus groups, assistant principals, as well as teachers. And so mentioning the teacher focus group, we wanted to listen to them. Hey, what do you need? So we asked questions, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to do to prepare you, to help you? First of all, three things that stood out. One is they said, hey, I want to be treated like professionals. Second, I want to be trusted. And then third, they wanted professional development that's going to be geared to them. So it's going to be very special to them, that's specific to their needs. And so as a team, Dr. Kelly's team and we all come together. The things that we've done so far is at the end of the day, over the summer, we created our inaugural Innovate, Create, Engage Institute. Earlier, I was saying we have many effective teachers across this district. That was an institute, a PD session that was led by our teachers here in Hamilton County. PD, professional development, and again, led by our teachers, because ultimately we've got to find ways to help share all the wonderful things that's going on in our district. And so the teachers, of course, they was given a menu of items. They was able to go to the sessions that was going to help them. Go to the sessions going to prepare them to be effective in the classroom, because we're listening. They wanted specific professional development that's going to be geared to their needs. Ultimately, across the district, we've given autonomy to our principals, where we really focus on school-based PD, professional development, because ultimately every school is different and unique, and ultimately if we have the right leader in that building, then they're going to know exactly what their teachers need, the students need, and so our job as a district level is to rally around the schools and to give them that support. So we've given them some autonomy there to have specific needs, specific professional development for their schools. As a district standpoint, you know, our focus is literacy. So we've revamped how we go about teaching reading, where we've guided reading, but we're doing that by modeling. So our teachers are able to see effective teachers with kids, showing them how to do those best practices, how to teach, how to guide reading, the strategies in place so they learn from each other. And not only do we have literacy labs across the district, we have math labs, science labs, et cetera. But those are just some of the things that we are doing in the district standpoint to provide professional development for our teachers. I would like to say, one, we do recognize when we look at data and test scores that when you think about ineffective teachers, we really need to find a way to coach teachers up. And so we've really revamped our project coach this year. Ultimately, we're really focusing on those ineffective teachers, the ones that receive a 1 on their TVOS scores. We've increased their time of observations of our project coach. Ultimately, not because we're trying to necessarily get rid of teachers by any means, but we want to make sure that we wrap around our arms around them to give them the support they need. Ultimately, any teacher in the district that receives a 1, an ineffective score, they're automatically given a PIP, performance improvement plan, not to try to get rid of them, but to coach them up, to get them to a point where they're going to be highly effective in that classroom. Those are just some of the things that's going on here in the district this year.
Sylvia, can you talk about anything else that's going on in districts across the state, other strategies?
Yeah, so one of the fun things that I get to do in my job is educator recognition. And so my team coordinates all of our recognition programs like Teacher of the Year, Principal of the Year, Supervisor of the Year. And so that's like the really fun part of my job. So right before this meeting, I'm getting prepared for the Principal and Supervisor of the Year banquet, which will be this next week at the LEAD conference. So I'm reading through the principal applications, and I'm thinking about this meeting and wondering what are they saying about what has led to some of the great results. So I made a few notes from some of the applications that I'm looking at this year. So one principal says that when they implemented the teacher evaluation system in their district, they used that as just the start of the conversation. They really want everyone in their system to receive no judgment feedback, meaning that when someone comes into their classroom, that it is seen as helpful and supportive and providing them information that they can use. Pretty much every principal in the selection process said they have had an intense focus on data, student level data, teacher level data, school-wide data, and district data. One principal wrote, "Everyone in my school has a coach. Every administrator, on down to the paraprofessionals. Everyone is part of a continuous learning process and has a coach who works with them individually." What are some of the other things I've seen? Obviously, at the state level, we are piloting a variety of initiatives that allow teachers to work together. We have an instructional partnership initiative which pairs teachers at the indicator level for the team rubric and allows teachers who are strong in certain indicators to work together. And it's part of a longer-term research study to see how to encourage teachers to work together, and then also to have structured conversations over the course of the year so that they're learning from one another.
So Brandon, Zach was just discussing your ability as a teacher. As someone who's in the classroom every day, could you please share with us your thoughts on the types of things that would make you feel supported as a teacher and would help you become the best teacher possible?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I don't know that I quite live up to the praise, but I think first and foremost, teacher quality is founded upon finding, recruiting, and building a critical mass of teachers at schools who care deeply about both their students and their craft. I think culturally there's this myth of the teacher superhero, the one teacher, Jaime Escalante from Stand and Deliver, Freedom Riders, this one teacher that just changes everything for their students. And I don't want to dispute that there is some truth to those narratives, but ultimately, successful schools aren't built around any one teacher, any one person. And so it's really up to principals to recruit the best teachers. It's up to school districts and communities to pay them well and develop cultures of professionalism and respect them. I do want to back up, though, and note that this conversation about teacher quality, we have to recognize that teacher quality doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a larger network of policies and realities that affect educational outcomes for our students. School culture, persisting racial and socioeconomic segregation, the role principals play, even school start times play a role in where our students are going. And so any conversation about how we improve teachers has to take into account the fact that there are a lot of factors that go into how successful our students are in school and afterward. That being said, once a school establishes what I think is a critical mass of teachers who are highly effective, as the state might say, I think it's really important for a school to build instructional coherence, this idea that everybody's on the same page, that everybody is teaching in a similar manner. What is it? Creativity, collaboration, and thinking critically, Mr. Brown. If a student goes from one classroom and a teacher is offering them bookwork, and in the next classroom they're trying to solve problems of pollution in local waterways, that sort of cognitive dissonance reinforces the idea that there are things that are important in school and there are things that are not important. So I think we need instructional coherence. Teachers need to be consulted in order to build sort of a model for what that looks like in each particular school. And then there needs to be targeted professional development that is, in many ways, selected by and run by teachers who are coaching one another. We talk a lot about teacher evaluations and school administrators and district leaders coming in and evaluating teachers, and I think that's wonderful. I've learned a lot from my evaluations. But I think we need to normalize the idea that it's not just administrators that should be evaluating teachers. We as professionals have a duty to monitor ourselves, get into each other's classrooms, offer critical feedback, offer up ourselves as models, good or bad, be willing to submit ourselves to new ideas. And if we can normalize that and move beyond sort of the, I guess the solitary confinement that defines so many classrooms, I think we'd be well on our way to improving teacher quality.
Zach, you mentioned professional development. Brandon did. I'd like to introduce Jill Levine. She is the Chief Academic Officer for Hamilton County Schools, and I would like for Jill to detail a little bit more about what professional development is looking like for our teachers starting this year.
Okay, great, and thank you so much for having this conversation today. Is this on? Sorry. One of my favorite topics. As I always said as a principal, I was a principal for 14 years. The most important thing that I did as a principal was hire great teachers. So this topic is so important to the children in Hamilton County. I was also raised by teachers and grandparents who were teachers, and my mother always said, you know, a sign of a great teacher is someone that's always trying to get better. So you know a teacher is great if they're always trying to improve. So that's what professional development is like. We call it PD, but professional development. Zach actually made a lot of good points along these lines to kind of summarize what we were doing. I think that we talk about morale of teachers. As Brandon said, morale goes up when teachers feel successful. So professional development is important because we help teachers to be successful. So some of the things in our county, as Zach mentioned, we did focus groups this summer and really just spent time listening to teachers, assistant principals, principals. And one of the main things teachers told us is improve PD. Make it more relevant to us, bring it to our schools, bring it closer to home, let us learn from each other. As I always said to my faculty, the answers are in this room, we just have to find them. So we've tried to restructure professional development along those lines. We sent a team of teacher leaders from Hamilton County to the Teach to Lead Summit run by the United States Department of Education. They've come back and they've created, what's it called, Carrie, a teacher think tank, right? To think about professional development in our district. How do we make this better? So we've got teachers working on this issue, which is exciting. We started the ICE Institute, Innovate, Engage, Create, so that teachers could present what they do well. And teachers could learn from other teachers about what works in the classroom. the data is really important to us. We know our data has to improve. But we also have to think about inputs. If we do more, if we show more models to teachers of what great teaching looks like, if we highlight the great models in our district, if we get more people into Brandon's classroom and Jennifer Ziegler's classroom and what used to be Miss Summey's classroom back when she was a teacher, if we get other people into those great classrooms, we all learn from each other. So we're trying to find ways to have more models for our teachers to visit, to set up mentoring programs from one school to another so that the teachers can have literacy discussions between one or two other schools and see great teaching in each other's classrooms. We're also setting up these literacy labs so that teachers can see great teaching modeled with their own kids by a literacy expert and then learn from that and practice those strategies. This summer, we set up professional development where teachers could come to Orchard Knob Elementary School and then Dalewood Middle School and have professional development around literacy, but then have, we call them real live kids, in the building that we modeled with those kids, and then the kids all broke out into groups with our teachers, and they practiced literacy strategies with the kids. So really moving with a sense of urgency around this idea of literacy professional development, how to make it better. We think that if we can pilot these ideas and grow them quickly, we can provide a better experience for all of our teachers. I should mention also that we're working a lot with UTC, and Renee may speak to that, to revamp teacher prep. So how do we give our student teachers a better experience so that when they're student teaching, they're with the best teachers in our district? And now, how do we expand that so that they also get 3 years of mentoring from those same teachers once they become teachers in the field? So there's lots of really exciting stuff going on in our community with UTC, with the foundations, with leadership in our teacher leaders to improve this. And I think we're really on the upswing as far as that goes.
Thanks, Jill. Edna, can you talk a little bit about...
Hold on, Brandon wanted to add something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, sure.
Professional development is a key part of ensuring that teacher quality goes up. But it is important to remember how busy teachers are. From, let's see, 9:54 a.m. until 4 p.m., I am totally booked. I mean, I'm not going to check my email. I'm not going to reply. I'm not even going to check my phone. We're busy. And planning period often consists of just that, putting together lesson plans, grading, reflecting on data from recent assessments. On average in America, teachers spend 1,100 hours teaching. And that's not necessarily the case in other developed countries. Primary school teachers often spend 803 hours in front of their students. Secondary teachers in other developed countries, around 650. That's a lot less time, which means there's a lot more time for teachers to reflect and think critically about their craft and how to improve it. So we do need to think and implement professional development intelligently and respect the fact that we're teaching a lot. And so how do we balance that with improving teacher quality? It's a difficult question, but one that I think we do need to address.
That's a great point. And if we could go to Edna now, if you wouldn't mind talking to us about Project Inspire, which trains quality teachers for some of our lowest performing schools, what you're doing with that and why.
Okay. Project Inspire is an initiative of the Public Education Foundation. And while the district is working on with teachers in the district, UTC is working with teachers, everybody in this room knows that Chattanooga is now the place people want to live. So Project Inspire is doing a lot of recruiting across the country with people who want to come here. The folks we recruit are graduates who have degrees in our high needs areas, math and science, and this year literacy. These are folks who have a degree, but not a teaching degree. But they've always had a passion for teaching. So we have opportunities to recruit 60 or 70 folks. Some of them are young people right out of college. Some of them are career changers. And this is what happens when they express an interest in teaching. we want to make sure we do what we hear so often, and that is not just take everybody who's breathing who wants to teach. As Anthony said in his op-ed piece, it's a hard job, but the folks in this room who are teachers will tell you this, even though it's a hard job, it's a job we love. So we want folks who can do a hard job and love it. So this is what we do. We recruit people, 60 or 70, and usually it's for about 12 jobs, and we're hoping to expand that this year. We have a very rigorous screening process. And part of that process is we either interview them on Skype or they come in for the interviews. And some of these folks are local folks. So it's not just folks from across the country, but we are taking advantage of the fact that they want to live here. And during the screening process, we're looking for certain indicators that they are ready to be teachers and they want to be teachers in high-need schools. There are folks in our district who are good at teaching, but they may not be good at teaching kids that come to school every day from neighborhoods where they are stressed, from homes where their parents are worried every single day about whether they're going to be able to put food on the table. That's a lot of stress. And so we asked them one question, and that is, not why do you want to teach, but why do you want to teach in a high-need school? And one of the things we're looking for is that growth mindset, that belief that all kids, even kids stressed out, can learn at high levels, and that I'm not going to give up on them. We ask them not if they like kids, because lots of people like kids, but any teacher will tell you that an important part of being an effective teacher is being able to build a relationship with students. And it's not just a relationship where you can talk about the fact that they're on the football game. It's the kind of relationship you develop. So when you say to them, I need for you to stretch yourself beyond your boundaries. I need for you to do things that right now you think may be impossible. That's the kind of relationship you build with kids that make them those rock stars as they become. Another question we asked them, because this is really important, we asked them to tell us about a challenge, some decision they've had to make that was really a difficult decision, maybe even a life-changing decision. And they tell us what they did and what they learned from it. And again, we're trying to get at, do you have what Angela Duckworth calls grit? Because a teacher has to have grit if she's going to teach kids about grit. So that's just the screening process to get you the opportunity to come here for selection day. During selection weekend, we give them a chance to see the city. We have one person who wasn't going to come and applied for 2 jobs here because she loves the city so much. But they get a chance to see the city and they fall in love with it. And then we put them in a classroom. They have to teach a lesson, but we're not looking to see if they already know how to teach because we're going to teach them that. What we're looking for when they're teaching that lesson is this a person who's coachable? Because all of us have to be coached to get better. It's not that magical thing. Anthony said it, teaching is taught. Once we see them in that lesson, we also have them do a problem-solving activity because teaching is about teamwork. And the best way you can eliminate yourself is when you're in a group problem-solving and you try to outshine everybody else or make everybody else on the team look bad. So that's part of it. Now, the other part of that, that's just to get an opportunity to teach. Jill talked about this. It's important to feel successful. That's what builds your morale. So we want them to be successful from day one. What they have is a year-long teacher residency. They spend a whole year in a classroom with a teacher like Anthony, we call a clinical instructor. And they're learning what happens at the beginning of the year when you're setting the tone. Because every teacher in this room knows If you don't start developing a culture of growth, and by the way, I was so happy to see that as one of the Chattanooga 2.0 recommendations. If you don't establish that, in April, they're going to be out of control and you're going to be crazy. But they need to see that. I student taught, I had a great experience, but I didn't get to see that part. So I was figuring it out my first day. They need to be there to see what happens in spring when the tests are over. To see that after the exams are over, you don't cruise till May. That's when you do your dream lesson. That's when you pull out all the stops and get crazy in the classroom and they get really excited. The other thing that happens is we not only work with the residents, but we work with the clinical instructors, because while they have great effectiveness scores, in order to be a coach, you can't just be good. You have to be able to teach someone else to be good. You can't just say, I don't know how I do it, but I can get the kids to do this. You have to be able to explain exactly what you do to get kids engaged. And then we have a formal program. They work on things like eliciting children's thinking. They have to get up close with children, listen to what they're thinking, and know what question to ask to advance that thinking. So I won't go through all of that. But then we meet every Friday, and we talk about what's happening with them while they're teaching so that we can be attuned to what their needs are. We can talk to the coaches. I'll fast forward to they have finished the year. Oh, by the way, they're also working on a master's degree, which gives them their teaching license. So every day they're learning the theory, but they're also getting a chance to practice it. And again, I obviously got a good education. I was a stellar teacher, I hope. So the traditional program can get you there. But what makes Project Inspire different is you get to put that theory into practice every day, and you know what questions to ask. I had lots of questions after I was in the classroom facing 25 students by myself. But anyway, after you're hired, then you still get 4 years of support, because the first 4 years are the most critical. You're in the classroom, you're a regular teacher. Above what you get from your school as a mentor and a coach, you still get a Project Inspire coach. And we are pretty much on demand. We try to be there once a week, but if you're struggling, you're going to get us every day. And if you are off to a good start and you're getting enough support in the school, you may see us once every 2 weeks. But we are determined to make you successful so that you will want to stay in a high-need school. We invest a lot of time in folks who have a passion for kids who need them the most. So we do all of that to guarantee that they're successful. And we have a 90% retention rate. We're really excited about that. Our data also shows that compared to traditional teachers teaching in similar schools and teaching similar subjects, they are outperforming them in terms of growth scores, outperforming them in terms of the other measures that we are using for regular teachers. So we're really excited about that. Now I've probably taken up the rest of the program, sorry.
Part of what Chattanooga 2.0 proposed in its recommendations was a really sincere effort to try to expand Project Inspire. I'd like Jared Bigham, who is the coordinator of 2.0, to kind of brief everybody on other teacher improvement initiatives that 2.0 would like to see.
Sure, and as Jill said, I also come from a family of educators. I'm a fourth-generation teacher. I'm married to an educator, so I'm very sympathetic to a lot of the challenges that educators deal with as we've had these conversations with 2.0. And, you know, you've heard me say before that 2.0 needs a silver buckshot approach. There's no silver bullet to fixing any of these challenges we face. But if there is something that comes very close to a silver bullet, it's high-quality teachers in every classroom. And so part of the 2.0 conversation is a human capital strategy with how do we recruit the very best educators to Hamilton County? How do we retain the great educators we have in Hamilton County? And how do we support the great educators in Hamilton County. And also, how do we elevate the teaching profession in Hamilton County so it's an attractive place to come work and raise a family? So one of the things Brandon said that really resonated with me is about this critical mass of effective teachers. And, God loves a normal bell curve in all things. And so in education, that's problematic because you don't want, 15 or 20% great teachers that wake up every morning saying, man, I get to go teach today. And then 50% of teachers that are, say, okay, I'm going to do good today. And then 15 or 20% say, man, I got to go to work today. It's how do you move that bell curve beyond the norm? The districts that figure out ways to strategically hire, retain, and support teachers so that you don't have that normal bell curve distribution, so that you have that critical mass. And that's really been some of the primary conversations we've had around it with 2.0, because you can look at the 10 priority areas, you can look at the 33 strategies that came from the stakeholders in the community, and most of those are dependent on great teachers implementing those strategies. And so it really becomes about the people, not the programs.
Okay. I'm going to ask Renee Murley to come up here. Since July, Renee has been the director of UTC's College of Education. UTC is a major supplier of teachers to the Hamilton County system, and they are expected to be ready on day one. Can you talk about what you're doing to prepare them for that?
These short people, sorry. You used the phrase ready on day one. I just flew down the interstate from Nashville to return from the SCORE event, which SCORE stands for State Collaborative on Reforming Education, who released the report on teacher preparation and what they have found in their research to be effective strategies in incorporating into our teacher preparation programs. What's exciting and was so energizing for me is that everything we're doing in collaboration with Hamilton County aligns with everything that they are suggesting that we do, which is such a rewarding and wonderful experience to be able to come back and visit with our friends in Hamilton County and say, this is what we're doing, and these are some exciting times. I just want to highlight about 3 different things that we're working on, and like you said, I've been here since July 1, and so I could not have had a better team of folks to work with to take off running, so we have worked diligently for these several months to really make a lot of changes and move ahead. First is curriculum. That's what we teach. We teach curriculum, and we teach how to teach teachers to be effective, and we talk about content, and we do all of these things. However, we've had to change some things, and we're proposing different changes, and one of those is expanding to the year-long residency. This is a change for us at UTC. We've done previously the 2 placements in 1 semester. Even this semester, thanks to our partnership with Hamilton County, we said, let's do a full semester in 1 placement, so students have that opportunity to work with that outstanding effective teacher for 1 full semester. We eventually want to get to that point where we have them in the field for an entire year so they see the beginning. We want them to start the very first day of school. We want them to finish up after testing so that they see what the beginning is like and what the end is like. So we are very much attuned to what the research says about a residency model. We also are incorporating EdTPA. Now, EdTPA stands for Education Teacher Performance Assessment, and it is now state mandated, or will be by 2019, which is a performance-based assessment. Instead of taking a standardized test to receive licensure, our teacher candidates will be evaluated based on a performance assessment. They are videotaping themselves. They are writing commentary about what they're doing. They are submitting to a national score in Pearson, and they are evaluated by people from New York City. We're in a pilot stage right now where we have pre-K through 3 teachers placed with highly effective teachers, and they are actually doing this semester. We are hearing lots of moans and groans. It is not easy. It is very difficult, but I do not apologize for rigor and raising the standards. And we want them to be effective teachers. And we believe EdTPA is a reflection of best practice in how we analyze and how we provide feedback and how we assess students and how we plan instruction and how we meet the needs of our different learners in our classroom. So this is a change that's coming about, but we are ahead of the curve. It doesn't come into effect until 2019, but UTC is already on board moving ahead in this direction. Also, I have to highlight the partnership that we have with Hamilton County Schools. We are so excited. As I mentioned, we've been working with them. We've placed 21 pre-K through 3 teachers with the most highly effective teachers as identified by Hamilton County Schools. We believe that our teacher candidates need to be with those highly effective teachers so they learn to be the Brandons. They learn from the very best to replicate and carry on those same strategies and skill sets when they have their own classroom. And I have to say, of those 21 teachers, over half of them are UTC graduates. So we are very proud of the fact that we have highly effective teachers in our school system. I also want to highlight, too, because of the work with the State Department of Education, we have been selected, UTC, Hamilton County, to work together on a pilot program at the state level. It's an inaugural network of partnerships in which we come together and work together and develop protocols on how local education agencies work together with teacher-provider programs. So we are coming together, coming around the table, talking about what those residency models should look like. What is it they need to be doing in the classroom? We're talking about classroom management. We're talking about the content. We're talking about the curriculum. We're talking about those relevant issues that we are finding in our classrooms day in and day out. So we are very excited and thrilled to be a part of that. And last, I just want to highlight our new initiative that really came about this week. We're acting on that sense of urgency. We have a mentor program that we are working very closely with Hamilton County to identify, or with Jill's help, she's identified those highly effective teachers that are working with our teacher candidates right now. The plan is to ask them to extend their mentorship, follow them into the classroom as they become new teachers. We also will provide more support while they're in the field during those first 3 years so that they too can have success. So you will find, even at the undergraduate level, we are doing very much a lot of what's happening even with Project Inspire and other similar residency projects across the state, because we know these things are important and they are demonstrating effective teacher preparation. So we are thrilled and excited to be a part of the work here in Hamilton County. So thank you.
Well, that was pretty inspiring, Renee. That's all of the changes at UTC, all of the changes that Dr. Kelly and Jill, state support, a lot of community support. There's tremendous momentum in this community to help public education improve. One of the key players who has taken that message to heart and taken it around town is David Steele, who is the Vice President of Policy and Education for the Chamber of Commerce. And I would like for David just to talk a little bit about, from where you sit at the Chamber, why are educational outcomes so important to our community, to our local economy?
Thank you. And good evening. Thank you to the paper for hosting this. I think it's phenomenal. When I was a kid, study hall was a place for apathy and despair, and this is mislabeled.
We're trying to change the image.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. The first thing I would say is that it might seem odd. To me, it almost seemed odd that you would even ask the Chamber to comment here, because we aren't educators, we aren't experts. I will say, Mr. Brown, I spent a day in Mr. Hubbard Heights' class, and I agree with your assessment. So it was fantastic. But that got me to thinking a little bit. I've been on a lot of airplanes, but I don't know how to fly. I can't tell a pilot how to do his job, and it'd be a mistake for me to try. But I'm absolutely a stakeholder every time I get on that airplane. And that is in many ways indicative of, I think, the business community's perspective with respect to the topic that we're discussing. We don't know how to fix something that's broken. We certainly can appreciate some amazing things that are going very well in our community already, but we are stakeholders. Jill and Jared bragged about their family trees. Neither of my grandfathers went past the 10th grade. And that's because they grew up in a very, very different economy. And some of the research that set the stage for 2.0 indicated that we'll have 10,000 new jobs in the next few years, an amazing economy here. Over 80% of those that pay a living wage are going to require something beyond high school. It may be an associate's degree, it may be a bachelor's degree, it may be some sort of workforce credential. But in other words, my grandfathers wouldn't have been able to thrive in the economy that Chattanooga is producing right now. And we recently finished a survey of our chamber members, building up to the legislative agenda for next year. And there were some predictable things that Senator Gardenhire, you can make a note of. We don't like taxes, and we don't like over-regulation. That came through, right? What you'd expect. But what really jumped off the page was how intensely focused our members are on education and workforce development right now. Again, not with an eye towards telling y'all how to do what you do, but recognizing what stakeholders we are in the outcome. And the last thing I would say is that the chamber doesn't just come to the table as business people or employers. Many of us are related to educators or neighbors of educators or administrators. We are in many cases parents. And one of the things that's awesome about Hamilton County is our scale. And so we are truly all in this together. And there's, I think, a real spirit of hope in our community this time, in spite of harsh front page stories from Kendi. And there are two big reasons for that spirit of hope, I think. One is what we could see outside the window a little bit earlier, and that's just the magic that is Hamilton County right now. There's just so many awesome things happening in our region. And then the other big reason for hope is what's inside this room and who you all represent, is there are so many different folks who are recognizing at the same time how important this is and how vital it is that we solve these problems. And I appreciate your giving the chamber an opportunity to be here today. We have enjoyed the collaboration we've had with so many folks from the school system, and that's not going to stop. And thanks for giving us a little bit of momentum tonight.
When we were putting together this forum, we really wanted to stay focused on the students. This is really about students and how we educate them so that they can be productive members of our community. And I wanted to just note that we have some students here in the front row even. So good for you guys for coming out tonight, and for other students who may be. But now we would like to open it up to questions. We know that there are members of the community out here who might have some questions for either our panelists or some of the other speakers. And so we would like to open it up now.
If you have a question, just raise your hand. Alex Chambliss is going to be he'll bring a mic to you. And if you wouldn't mind telling us your name, your role in the community, and if you also wouldn't mind keeping your questions concise, we want to let as many people as possible ask questions.
Hello, I'm Carmen Carson, and I have been an educator and now do life and business coaching. And so my question is particularly for Sylvia. One of the issues I have found, particularly as I go in and help teachers, is they don't feel supported enough. And so what have you seen across different districts where we've been able to support teachers and that has led to better outcomes? What kind of supports have you seen?
One of the projects that's really grown in our division has been our Teacher Leader Network. This started about 4 years ago. There was a pilot project for districts to participate in developing their own teacher leader network. That has since grown where we've had, I think, nearly 50 districts participate in developing their own teacher leader models, where the leadership in the school is shared among teachers, and there are opportunities created for leaders, teacher leaders, to step up and be a part of the solutions that occur in schools. So we've seen a lot of momentum from this idea of shared leadership and teacher leader models. I think the network itself really brings districts together who are trying to solve these issues and allows them to work together around what we call the teacher leader standards. And so that's one of the areas that we've seen a lot of momentum. And again, our role is really bringing those districts together so that they can problem solve amongst each other.
Hi, this is for Brandon. Brandon, I'm Bob Fulton. I've been a teacher for 45 years. I'm retired now. I'd really like to hear you tell us about your going through high school and college and discovering that you were going to be a teacher. What were the things that drove you to teaching?
Well, Bob, I had zero interest in becoming a teacher in high school or college.
Me too.
I'm a product of private schooling, both high school and college. I'm a Lee University graduate, and I had perhaps the misfortune of graduating in the midst of the Great Recession with a double major in religion and history with a minor in Greek, just to make sure I was totally unemployable. But Lee University did instill in me a strong sense of justice and a desire to play a part in the betterment or redemption. I was a part of a tutoring program and thought, why not teach? I became a teacher through Teach for America, which is a national organization that recruits primarily recent college grads to work in high-need schools, very similar to Project Inspire, although their training is less rigorous, I think. I think Project Inspire's model is much more sustainable. I taught for a couple of years on an Indian reservation in South Dakota. Got my feet wet and was not the teacher I needed to be, and eventually found my way to Wake Forest University, where I got into a more traditional teaching program. And really, Bob, I'm sure you've seen it. When I'm in the classroom and I see students, I'm so inspired. I teach at the Howard School, which in our community has a very negative reputation, and our students know it. They know that in many ways we don't have faith in them, but I do, because my goodness, I work with some of the most brilliant, exciting, turnt students in our county. And you know what? Teaching's very tiring. It's exhausting. You don't have very much time, but it's really inspiring, and that's why I'm a teacher.
My name is Marv Martin. I'm a realtor from Hickson, and for 25 years, I've talked firsthand to prospective buyers coming to Chattanooga. The first thing I hear invariably is, we want good schools. We're not going anywhere without good public schools. If we have to pay for private schooling, it's a totally different issue. The one thing that concerns me is, and I'm not sure that you all have an answer to this question, but you can tell me how serious a problem it is, that we seem to be losing a lot of our good teachers in Tennessee to the surrounding communities. Salary purposes, of course. Is that a problem, and what's being done about it? Do we have a strategy?
Kirk?
I think maybe Dr. Kelly can discuss that.
Good evening. Our starting salary is $37,501 for a brand-new person coming in. And when we look at Metro Nashville, you mentioned Metro Nashville, they pay around $4,500 more. Some of the North Georgia areas do pay more, and so there is the amount of money that's out there that's available. But one of the things that we're also finding is when we had that great climate, great leadership, our teachers stay. One school to highlight that has been winning, you mentioned earlier, Sylvia did, about incentives, and that's Eastside. Eastside has been winning incentives, and last year, I think in terms of Eastside, they had a very small number of openings. Now, in some of our cases, we have larger openings. In some of our schools, we do not have turnover. But it's an issue that we had to consider, something that we had to work on as an entire community to try to get the salaries up. But that's where we are at the current time, and we're doing what we can to recruit. School board this past year actually put money into the budget for incentives, and so we do have money that we will be using for incentives to attract teachers. We're also looking to do the same thing with administrators, and the incentive is not really so much to attract, but it's also been real helpful with retaining. And the other part that's really been one of the things that's been great with retaining teachers, as Mr. Brown spoke about, has been the climate and the culture. So the more that we can do to create a good climate and culture, the better we are with retaining our administrators and our teachers.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christy Wilkinson. I'm a resident in the Highland Park neighborhood, and I have a first grader at Battle Academy. I hear a lot of talk about students growing up in poverty and living in neighborhoods that are stressful, or maybe home environments that are stressful. And I'm just wondering if we can give some voice to what the frontline experiences of teachers and administrators in those schools are experiencing, so that we can better understand what the nature of the problems are and what some of the symptoms are.
A lot of the students that enter my classroom have undergone significant trauma in their lives, past and maybe even present. One of my students is currently in the hospital. She was shot yesterday, I believe. That's huge. I mean, we are having this conversation about teacher quality, and I do believe that teachers are important factors, but as a community, we have to confront the fact that we live in a very divided city and county. And until we address persisting poverty and segregation, I'm not entirely convinced that we're going to see different outcomes. And that's not just on the schools. I will do whatever it takes to ensure that my students are successful, but it's not just my job. It's not just the police's job. We've got to take care of these things in advance. But that being said, it is important for teachers working in these schools to be culturally responsive, to receive training in how to address trauma. We have extra counselors at Howard to help students process things. Those sorts of things, I think, go a long way.
She has.
Thank you. My name is Akia Lewis, and I'm a student at the Howard School. My question is for all of you, so I really want everyone to answer. And my question is, what are you planning to do after this? So this was more of achievements and praising everything, and that's awesome and that's great, but I want to hear what's next and what the community feels like they should do next. So what advice as to what we should do and what you're going to do after this.
We didn't know you were going to be bossy when we both pointed together. Okay, I'll tell you not just what I'm going to do after, but what I've already started doing. And it also responds to your question about high-need schools and so forth. Before I became principal of Howard, I was assistant principal in a magnet school, and I had been there for 7 years. And I saw There were lots of conditions there that made it possible to work with a really diverse student body. And so when I went to Howard, I went knowing that in a school where kids are experiencing a lot of stress, there is a lot that a district can do to remove some of the barriers that allow people who are willing to work as hard as they work every day to get the job done. And I have already started having those conversations with folks at the district, because if I had never been at a school that had the opportunities this school had, I wouldn't know what to ask for. And the principals I work with, I talk to them about some of the things that you can ask your district to do for you, to help you do the hard work you're doing. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm like a broken record, but they're listening, because if you don't know, you don't know. So I won't get into the specifics, but there are lots of things we can do to make it make it easier, a little easier for people in the high-need schools to do the work they're committed to do. Just specific things you can do, a district can do.
I love you. Good job. Great question. You know, first and foremost, you know, just as the former principal of Howard, each day, every day I went to school, and my job was to make sure that I had the best people in the classrooms for all my students. And so now in this new role, my job is to make sure that I have the best leadership in all of our schools, because it's unacceptable to have a failing school. It's unacceptable to have one school that's got great teachers, then another school that we don't have all the great teachers that we need. So my job and the team at the central office is to make sure that all of our schools have the great leadership, because it starts with leadership as well. The other thing we recognize is that, and since you're high school, I focus on high school, that one path is just not for everyone. You know, we need to make sure that we have other opportunities that's out there. And we've done some things, and we're going to continue to. We've got some things in the works that I'm unable to speak of right now, but you'll hear about it hopefully soon. Because ultimately, we understand that at Howard, there's 850 students, whatnot. We need to make sure we find the right path for each of those students. And just the traditional path for a four-year college may not be what they need to go to. It might need to be a vocational. It might need to be a different track. But we need to recognize that our students need different options. We want to make sure that all of our students, at the end of the day, in 4 years or less, that they are set up for success. So we need to, as a district, as a community, to ensure that we are fighting for all of our students. And so that's what I'm going to do in the morning, and that's what I'm going to do next week, as long as I'm in this job.
Exactly. Before you leave that one, how do you keep the Brandons in the classroom as opposed to moving the leadership to administration?
Yeah, you know, there's a balance there, sir, because ultimately, you know, it was bittersweet for me leaving, just to speak personally. But ultimately, we need to have great leaders in all of the capacities, in the school building, the central office, in the community, et cetera. But I will say, for teachers like Brendan, I think we spoke of it earlier, it's important for the leader, a principal at a school, to empower the teachers. We've got to have teacher leaders. And ultimately, my job, and when I was a principal, I found all those, what I call my superstars, I empowered them. I've given them some extra duties, because ultimately, if they feel that, hey, I'm making a difference not only in my classroom, but in my school, and the climate, and the culture, then hopefully they'll stay. But ultimately, it's not so much keeping Brandon maybe at Howard, but we've got to keep Brandon in Hamilton County, in our school district, because ultimately we might need Brandon to up his game to go to another level. But I think we need to remember the retention is great for our schools, but it's also about keeping great people in the Hamilton County School District.
Good evening, I'm Gladys Pineda Lord. I work with Chat State, but I am also a mother of four. And I'm also an advocate for immigrant community. And my question today is, you already addressed so many of the things that very important to me, but I think it's an element that I want to hear a little bit more, is about the teacher diversity gaps. So how are we addressing that? Is this, recently in March, we have a group of African American and Latino leaders that got together in Nashville in Casa Safran we were trying to put together an agenda, a shared agenda about the communities of color and how we are improving the access and the opportunities for our communities. So I just want to hear a little bit more because our kids will need to see them in the teachers too. So I think it's an element and I want that maybe if you can elaborate, and also really for the leaders, the elected officials and people that is running for office, to keep that in mind because this is an important issue. We have English learners that are needing, that have some needs, and we have just 5% of the African American and 21% of the Latino community is finishing college ready. So I think it's an important issue that we need to address.
That's a great question. I will start by just highlighting a few things that are happening across the state. I think as Renee mentioned, there are a lot of changes happening with the educator preparation provider standards that are focused on recruitment and also diversity. And so we are improving those standards and hope that our teacher pipeline starts to look more reflective of our student pipeline. So that's happening, and the partnerships that programs are creating with districts, we hope will lead to some more of those intense efforts around recruitment. On my team, we are actually starting to take a look at some of these gaps and hope to be able to pilot some grant opportunities for districts with the largest gaps this year to really focus on recruitment and maybe a broader recruitment strategy to address the gaps between the teacher and student demographics. I think the other issue that we don't talk about a lot is really around increasing the competency levels of our existing teachers and what that looks like at the district level in terms of cultural competency and where that fits in our training models, not only on the prep side, but also in-service professional development as well. And I'd love to hear more about how Hamilton County is thinking about the cultural competencies of the existing teacher force.
Does anyone from Hamilton County want to address that at all? Zach?
You know, honestly, you know, we've got 5 initiatives, and one of our initiatives for this school year is school climate and culture. I want to tackle both of your question is the question here is I totally understand about you know, the minority workforce, and we recognize right now they're not in the pipeline, right? We don't have minority teachers in the pipeline, so we have to do something to change that. You know, I was talking about the pathways for all of our students. For example, at Howard, you know, right now with you talking about the English language learners, our Hispanic population, which is about 33%. So again, as a district, we're working on ways, how do we provide services to those students to better prepare them for the future? So we're constantly trying to find ways to work with the state, come up with a plan, a game plan of having a transitional school, whatever that looks like, because right now what we're doing is just not working. I'm just going to be, quite frankly, when a student comes to Hamilton County, you know, my motto at Howard was, once they walk in the door, it's our job to teach, no matter what. And then our teachers have done a great job to take that on, but ultimately we've got to be able to support them. But right now we're not setting students up for success when you think about our English language learners. But I want you to know, I believe that no one person have the solutions, but collectively I think we can come up with a great plan for our kids, and just know that we're going to address that as a district, and we're trying to address it because ultimately our job is to teach all 43,000 kids, not just the ones that's been here for a while. I would say that ultimately I have, when you think about school climate and culture, you know, Brandon mentioned some of the students, the trauma. I had the privilege last couple weeks to attend a training, a state training, was talking about school climate and culture, about students with that's gone through trauma in their lives, and you know, the sticking point was all about creating relationships. At the end of the day, there was an educator that passed away, and it was a YouTube video. Her name was Rita Pearson. She said, you know, kids don't learn from teachers they don't, or people they don't like. You know, and I think that's so true for teenagers and for kids, that they're not going to learn from students or kids they don't like, or teachers they don't like. So as a district, what we're doing is we're going to really, we have one of our principal network meetings coming up in either January, where we're taking a whole day. We're just focusing on school climate and culture. Because at the end of the day, when you think about all of our schools, for our schools, it's a safe haven for our students. But if we don't take care of that basic need where they feel safe and they feel like the teachers love me, they're going to take care of me, they don't care. They can care less about math, science, and reading. But I know that it is an issue, and we don't have all the solutions, but we're doing all we can to make sure that we arm and we prepare our leaders in our schools to how do you build that culture, working closely with Karen Glenn. She's a director for when it comes to bullying, VES training. So we're trying to create an environment that's going to be conducive to learning for our students. So we do have, we're trying to come up with that game plan, but and I'm not going to just say we've got the plan yet. But I know that we're going to work on it. It's a major initiative, and we're going to really be focusing on it this school year. Because honestly, it's not that we want one school that's safe and that's conducive to learning. We want all of our schools to be that way.
I was about to ask a question from Twitter.
I'll just add to that, though. Project Inspire is also aggressively recruiting candidates of color because we know how important that is. And we're happy to say our current cohort of 10 has 5 candidates, and they come with 3.0 averages in math and science, and we're really happy about that. So that is an area where we are aggressively recruiting candidates of color.
So someone on Twitter is asking, why are those of us with years of experience in low-performing schools not being utilized to help train others in those schools? So whoever wants to answer that. Jill?
So, sorry. I'll just hold it. So that's the goal, is that one of the things we started to do is start identifying where's the top talent in this district. We're placing our student teachers now with the top talent in the district. We're setting up mentoring programs from school to school so that we can provide models of the best teaching and get teachers into those classrooms. As a matter of fact, some of our principals are here. Last week, we had 9 different options for our principals to go to visit schools that had great examples of student engagement. So our principals spent half a day. They got to choose the school they went to. They got to hear from the leaders of those schools who presented some great models. We were at Howard, was one of those 9 schools around the 9th grade academy and engagement, but we were all over the district. So we are going to do that. If whoever tweeted you, Kendi, tell them to call me. If they have a great classroom, I'll come and visit personally. And as we're visiting schools, I know Zach's been in probably more than I have. I was in my 37th school today. One of the things I'm writing down is where I see great instruction, so I can send other people to see that.
One question, Jill.
Yes.
Along that line, can you share what are the key indicators of top talent that you all are identifying?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those were mentioned before. I think so. Top talent indicators of top talent. So, having done this for a long time, you go into a classroom, and Edna, you'll confirm this, and Zach, I'm sure, and the other principals in the room. You walk into a classroom, and you see it. Kids are engaged. They're doing meaningful work. They're happy, they're comfortable, but they're working hard at the same time. It's those teachers that are always trying to get better. They are collaborating, they're working together. They want to be leaders because they want not only their classroom to be great, but they want every classroom in the school to be great. So top talent looks different in different places, and there's lots of different examples of great teaching. So you can never say, this is the one great teacher, because there's so many different types of great teachers. But the similarities are the same in terms of engaged students, and then teachers who know what to teach and sort of have the end in mind. So, these are the standards. These are the things that we are going to be tested on ultimately. These are the things our students have to know, but how do we teach them in a way that is joyous and that is engaging to all kids?
I've got to jump in real quick. I apologize. I've got the mic, so I'm just going to go ahead and. Okay. I want to go back to our school climate and culture, because I was sitting here thinking, boy, I've got to say that, because honestly, climate and culture is so important to me, because when those students come to school, they trust us. They want to be in a safe environment. We're their moms and dads. And I will say that I know this is about teachers, but at the end of the day, there's no way that we can make decisions without listening to students. And so one thing that we're definitely doing right now is we're looking and working with different vendors to make sure that we find the right survey, because honestly, we need to hear from our students. There's no way that we can sit here at central office and decide this school needs this, if we've yet to hear from our kids. And so one thing we will do this year is make sure that we have that survey in place where all of our schools will be partaking and taking the surveys to give us student feedback. And then we're going to work out a plan for those individual schools with Karen Glenn, which is the director of our STARS, works for the central office. But ultimately, it's not about what we think we need to do. It's all about what the kids need. And so I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we need to listen to our young people.
I think we have time for one more question.
Could I add one component? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. As a teacher, I get plenty of feedback from my students, but at the end of every quarter, I give my students a survey and ask for feedback both on how they're doing and how they think I'm doing. That's more meaningful than any teacher administrator that comes into my classroom because they're there every day. They see me fall flat on my face, which, contrary to public opinion, I do a lot. Student voice is crucial, in my opinion, to improving my quality as a teacher and perhaps all teachers.
One more. I'm going to defer to the school. No, I got Alex. Yep.
We'll let her ask a question, and then one more, and then we'll wrap up because we're about to go over in time. So, sure.
I'm Susan Miller, and I have no ties to education. I'm not a teacher. I'm just a businesswoman in Chattanooga. I am a product of the Hamilton County school system, though, and I can tell you firsthand that what a value education does to your life. I grew up in poverty, and education is what pulled me out of poverty. An education through college and an MBA, and then it has changed my life. And so when I wanted to touch a little bit on what the young woman said over there about what are we going to do now, I don't think you can do it alone. I have the utmost respect for teachers, but I don't think you can do it alone. It takes us in the community. It takes the teachers. It takes the parents. It takes the community. All of us working together to help you bring these children up through. Like you said, you have children in great distress in your communities, and that's why I volunteer at places like Creedy, where you can help children. You can be an advocate for children. I volunteer at Tennessee Achieves, where you can help children move on through college and encourage them to go into college. So I just want to know how you feel about that. What can the community do to help you?
I would say I think that's great, and I think part of that is the Chattanooga 2.0. I think that is a great place, a lot of strategies that we've listened to the community, and honestly, from the Chattanooga 2.0, the district standpoint, we're looking at those strategies and put in place of what we can do to help better our community, better our schools. But you're so right. It's not just the educators. It's going to take the parents, community members, aunts, uncles. It's going to take, I hate to say it, it's going to take a village. But I do think that we're on the right track as a community of really trying to solve this issue together.
I can be really brief and I don't need to mind. One of the strategies One of the strategies in 2.0 is accelerate what works. There are lots of things that work, but they need to be working in every single school. It's called equity. So that's one of the things the community can help us do, demand that.
As it relates to the teacher pipeline, I think we've seen a lot of interesting collaborations between the education and business communities around attracting teachers to your community. Some of you all have heard of Teach 901, Teach Memphis. These are areas where the business community and education have come together to really promote the Memphis area as the place to be, the place to work. You all could replicate that with all of the support that you have here from the community, Chattanooga 2.0, education, really to make this the premier place of employment.
One more question. We have time for one more question, and in the front row, you all have been raising your hands.
My name is Menashe, and I'm currently a junior at Howard. The question I had was, does location and reputation play a significant role in where effective teachers are placed. Howard doesn't have a very good reputation, and our teachers aren't really effective because of that. But schools like East Hamilton or CSAS have more effective teachers, and I just want to know why.
Dr. Kelly, do you want to give a shot at that?
I have started talking with our leadership. I've been at CSAS and I've been at Howard. I have started talking with our leadership about why I think there is a difference and how it can be remedied. When I was at Howard, I found students who cared and parents who cared just as much about their education, but there are lots of challenges that can be addressed. The community can address them, can help with those. The district can help with them, but we have to point them out, and they're very specific things that give the students at Howard a fighting chance to get access to the best teachers. Project Inspire sent 4 great teachers there this year, so we're working on that too.
I was just actually going to say that. It's all about in the leadership, and I would just say, as your former principal, you've got some great teachers there. We need more, right? And honestly, at the end of the day, we've got to find a way as a district to always rally behind those teachers, to support those teachers, because it is hard. It's difficult to work where where students need a little extra help, right? And so at the end of the day, though, our structure is set up in such that if Zach Brown is the principal of your school, if he feels that the teacher is awesome, then the other 74 principals think those teachers are awesome as well. So we've got to find a way, how do I keep them? And it is a unique situation, but I will say that you've got great teachers there. As a district, I think it goes back to recruiting, it goes back to incentives. I mean, we've got to do some things that's creative, because not just one school, all schools needs to have highly effective teachers in their classroom.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thanks to our panelists for your very articulate answers to these questions. Thank you so much to the students who came out tonight. We really appreciate that. You guys are what this is all about. And have a good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Oops.
And I got off to a bad start, but I'm sorry.
No, not at all. No.
But I think we should do this monthly, too much.
Yeah, you know what? Chris and I were talking before, like this afternoon, and we